be talking about not putting anything on horses, and that reflects how we hold ourselves in, how we bridle ourselves, so to speak, and there's more layers to it than that. But anyway, she said, you're a projector in the human design. I've worked with human design, and you're the leader, and you need to stand in your unique voice and go for it. So the second talk, I just, that beautiful song by Elbow, I blow those curtains wide, and I spoke as if my life depended on it.
Digital audio health by Symatrax.
I'd like to welcome to the show Mary Berkery, a body-centered soul coach and equine-assisted learning facilitator. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Thank you, Rhonda. It's so lovely to be here.
Thank you.
It's pond.
From across the pond, that's right. Can you talk to the audience a little bit about what you mean by a body-centered soul coach?
Yes, I actually said to a client today that I met for the first time, I said, I started with life coach, and then I moved to empowerment coach, and now I'm a body-centered soul coach. And what I meant by that was that sometimes we talk a lot. We're up here and we're talking about what I have to do or what has happened in my life or whatever. But when you bring people down to where you're feeling that, for example, that indecision in your body, and it could be, I feel it in my feet, my toes are curling. Then I notice that my heels aren't quite on the ground. And, what would it be like if you, bring your heels to the ground? And what happens nearly every time, Rhonda, is that people start to feel. They feel the fear, or they feel the insecurity, or they feel the wibbly wobbliness that's going on inside, or they feel how they've shut down and they're not allowing themselves to dream again and hope again. And then that's when the real coaching, in a sense, the work that I do begins. And then the soul aspect of that then is the second client I had today, again, for the first time. I work at a local center here and I see people for the first time. And he was just telling his story, about alcohol and this and that and regrets. And it's like we can so often spin stories, that become habitual. Whereas I believe that there is a place inside us, you can call it soul, call it essence, call it center, call it light, that is whole and that is at one with magnificence and possibility and creativity. So the body centering part helps you to face the pain, truly face the pain and not talk over it. And then the soul part is, what would it be like if you felt confident right now? If you weren't indecisive, what decision could you make? And really calling out, the true essence of that person once they have allowed some of the fossilized feelings to sort of dissolve by centering into their bodies. Hopefully that has answered it as clearly as succinctly as possible, but you can ask another question if it hasn't.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't know about addiction, and I really don't want to focus on that with you, but when people, whatever it is that they come to see you with, do they have a hard time transitioning or want to protect themselves from investigating those ideas? Because a lot of times when we're upset or angry or frustrated with life, we're not really in the body. We're sort of out of our body, and we're sort of working with our brain because we've shut down the feeling part of us. And so you've beautifully described about the soul and, about how to get back to that. The journey, is the journey a long one with your clients?
Can I answer that question? I work in two different ways. I work with adults, a lot of adults online, and I try, the way I book sessions is I have an initial session and then I book 3 sessions, and we come to an agreement as to what we want from the 3 sessions. And let me just think of your question, Rhonda, again. Yeah, there are people who don't want to get better,
Well, it's painful. It's too painful.
But my work can be quite, I'm quite direct, and I don't want dependency, if that's the right word. I prefer, and that's where my initial word empowerment came. I'm sort of like, I remember having my astrology chart done. It was like, you're the type of person that you'll ask the person, have you taken your pills? And why haven't you taken your pills? And that's when I'm in my power, when I'm doing that, not only to my clients, but to myself. And not that I take pills, but have I done what I'm supposed to be doing? And what happened? And not even, but with great compassion and care and holding people tenderly, what happened when you didn't and why? I'm not a kind of a person with a whip, but what I'm seeing, and I can see my own life. Yeah, there were secondary benefits even in my life to spinning stories rather than sitting into my powerful presence. And now in this time, we're doing this interview in the middle of 2024. I think we're not getting away with that as easily anymore. Either I'm not, and I don't think my clients are, because things are becoming intolerable, whether it's their work or their relationships or their own health. And also some of the illusions of something externally is going to save me or fix me is falling away, whether it's the pensionable job or whether it's the job, it's the 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
So people are facing themselves in kind of acute ways. I'm seeing this in acute ways in the way they've never done before. That is certainly happening. So does it take a long time? It takes as long as it takes, but there's definitely a quickening happening now. Definitely a quickening and a speeding up and a breaking down. And I think some of the anxiety that we're seeing and the stress that we're seeing is part of, in a sense, the breakdown for the breakthrough. And we are in pivotal times. And I think it's more of, I can talk maybe more for myself than my clients, but I see in my own life in a very black and white way now that I have a choice every day as to what I will entertain, or what I mean entertain is in what thoughts I'll entertain. Will I do, Macron, as we say in Ireland, oh, poor me, my sack in my back, or I've learned what I've needed to learn. What do I need to do? How could in coaching they use the word focusing forwards or moving the energy forwards. Okay, you've learned the lesson. What have you learned? Now how can you move forwards with this? And we often ask the question in coaching, who do you want to be? Pick a significant next birthday, for example, and who would you like at it? What would you like to be wearing? Where would you like to be living? Because so often we can be looking back over what could have been, might have been, or should have been, but focusing or especially in the psychotherapy world, you can be looking back quite a lot too, So, but a point comes, I think, when it's okay, this happened, that happened, this didn't happen. Now, how can I move the energy forward in my life? And that is certainly up at the moment this year because we're in rigid times, and I'm seeing it with my clients. With the horses, I work a lot with young people, and I see transformation in 3 sessions with young people much faster than with adults.
Is it because the older we get, we think about, when we talk to people, we talk in stories, and that's the story of our life, and we stick to that story. And I know there's a song about that, but we stay with our story because there's comfort there. And sometimes it's hard to want to move beyond that. because that's who we now are, is that story. So the good, the bad, the ugly, the great, right? And so can you speak a little bit about that? Because, I think that it depends on the conscious awareness of a person and their desire to move forward, because something, as you said, like when you're down about something, you're not sure why. In order to move that energy forward, you must take that first step for yourself. But some people don't know how to do that. Like, how do I do that? And how do I know that I'm stuck?
I think I had coffee with a friend of mine yesterday who has studied with a number of gurus, and he said they all say one thing. There are two things that keep you away from your true self: your thinking and your habits.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, and then there's a beautiful Byron Katie book, Who Would You Be Without Your Story? Who would you be without your story? And I think the third piece, Rhonda, is there are secondary benefits to staying small. It has, as you said, its own kind of comfort.
Mm-hmm.
My fear is that if I'm really powerful and really, really, really resilient and powerful, that I'll be left on my own. Now what Byron Katie would say with that is that true? And I had an experience last week where I gave 2 talks in England at an equine assisted learning conference. And I work totally at liberty now with horses. I don't put any bridles or saddles or halters on them. And it's very different, particularly within the equine world. I'm telling you this. So, and when I arrived there, I could really pick up, oh my God, these are all horse people who use bridles and saddles. And so my first talk, I held back a little bit and just shared some stories of equine assisted learning session. And I felt myself being kind of afraid. And then lunch came. Nobody came to speak to me, except one woman, just as we're going back at the break, said, oh, I really love what you were saying. Keep talking. And then I just got a message from a friend of mine. And she said, how did you go? And I said, oh, it's a very horsey world. And me talking about not putting anything on horses. And that reflects how we hold ourselves in, how we bridle ourselves, so to speak. And, and there's more layers to it than that. But anyway, she said, you're a projector in the human design. I work with human design. And you're the leader. And you need to stand in your unique voice and go for it. So the second talk, I just, that beautiful song by Elbow, I blow those curtains wide. And I spoke as if my life depended on it. And I had people around me like bees through a honeypot after the second talk. So it was like, it really helped me see the lie that when I'm really in my power, I'm actually even more attractive and more beautiful. But the story or the thinking has this, oh, if I'm really powerful, then I won't get any love, because I grew up in a family where you got attention when you were sick, and I had a sister younger than me who was always sick, and she seemed to be getting all the attention.
Oh,
it's like how we need to dismantle these stories that we have created that we think are true, even.
Yeah, and I think about the person that it's at home right now with children, and or the person that's driving to work, that they don't like their job, but they just don't know what to do, where to go, and they just keep on doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I mean, that's the definition of insanity, but we really don't know that when we're in that, and we don't know how to get out of that, because we can be unhappy with your situation for years that turn into decades, that turn into your lifetime. But you don't really know what to do to help yourself become happier and maybe like the people that you see, like what are they doing? So what advice would you give to somebody? What would be the first thing that you would say that person should focus on doing? Perhaps Just a
I
few
would
moments in the morning.
just focus on their hearts, first of
Uh-huh.
all, their hearts, and what, you know, and come out of this little bit between their ears that spins these fear-based stories. I call them the inner terrorist attacks. You know,
Yeah.
come into their hearts. That's the first thing. Just what does my heart want? What does my heart long for? And even questions like, who am I? In the Psych K meditation, they ask a question, who am I when I'm at my best?
Mm.
And just let the answer come up, not from the head down, but in a sense from the belly up. And also, if I was powerful, what would I be doing right now?
Mm.
Or if I knew that everything was going to be okay, what would the next step that I take? So kind of fake it, because the truth is, you know, you will be okay. But because the stories, you know, and the conditioning from our culture, from our families, from our, you know, our society, is you have to stay over here in this little box, you know, and that's a bit like putting saddles and bridles on horses. You know, that we put saddles and bridles on ourselves. And
That's a
so
good analogy.
start the process of just asking your heart, who am I? I had you know, like I was 17, I was walking through a field, and I mean, sometimes I wish I didn't ask, but I did. I was walking through a field at a family
Why did
farm,
I ask that?
and I said, who am I? Who am I before I was Mary Berkery, before I was female, before I was Irish? Do you know, who am I before I was the son and the daughter of this? And I don't know how soon it happened after that, Rhonda. It felt like the following day, but it could have been 2 or 3 months' time. I was walking through the same field, and I had a spiritual awakening, and I realized that everything I was looking at was an aspect of me. And then I had a vision of, I was raised Roman Catholic, that the candles on the altar reflected the light within me, and that the tabernacle that only the priest had the key to reflected something sacred inside myself. And I remember going back into the house and my sister begging my father to let her go to the city for something, and he wouldn't. And I remember walking in and saying, Daddy, let her go. And I became that bridge, that peacemaker, that bridge between opposites, which is what I do a lot of in my life. But and my life has never been the same since. And on one level, yeah, there's been that, you know, once you put your hand to the plow, I think it said there's no turning back. You know, once you ask these questions, the answers will come. You know, and you mightn't want to hear the answer, but the answers will come. And Caroline
We're
Miss,
afraid of the answer. We're afraid of the answers,
yeah,
right?
Caroline Miss says we all know the next step. We go to these workshops and trust in your intuition, and you know, whatever, we don't need to. She said, we all know the next step for our life. The next step, and the next step could be the next. I know the next step for me. I was in England last week, and I came back, and I was eating a lot of sugar and drinking coffee, and I felt very tired. And I know I got it very clearly yesterday. You're to spend a week just no sugar, no carb. Did I want to do that? No. Today I'm ready, you know, because I asked my higher power to just do it with me. And I have a significant birthday next Monday, and I just want to enter it more alive than I feel the last 2 days. But I knew that was the next step. I've known it for the last 3 days, but I'm in it today. You know, I'm now in. The battle is over, if you know what I mean. But we all know the next step, and it's not a big one. It's not you're to go and climb Mount Everest. It's the next step. It could be to, you know, write that letter, or clear out that clutter, or make that phone call, or do up your CV if you're an overburdened homemaker, housekeeper, mother, father. You know, find some part of that week, the next step, find something that feeds your soul, or feeds your heart, or feeds your joy, or feeds your fun. It's all the same, really, I think.
What are some of the things that a person could do to feed their soul?
Well, for everybody, that's different. You know, for me, for example, what feeds my soul is to have a beautiful massage. You know, I love to be in nature. I love to organize a dinner and have friends over. That feeds my soul. It feeds my soul to change the bed linen. It's very practical things. It feeds my soul. One major one that feeds my soul is to get up early and journal and meditate. When I do that, I feel more plugged in, tuned in, when it's tuned in, tapped in and turned on, and my day goes more smoothly rather than that you're turning back over and getting another half hour sleep or 40 minutes sleep. I'm catching up with myself for the day. So it doesn't feel like it's feeding my soul. I want to get out in a cold, damp Irish morning onto the floor, but ultimately it does feed my soul very deeply. That's my major one, to get up early.
Yeah, and so when you journal, the audience will probably want to know, what are you journaling about? Like, a person might say, well, what would I journal about? What would I say? How would I start?
Well, all I can tell you, Rhonda, is anyone saw my journals, the men would be coming in the white coats, okay? Start with where you're at. I am a piece of whatever, sugar. I hate myself. I hate my body. I hate my life. Start with that.
Yeah.
And keep writing. Just write it out. And then let it sort of, I call it vomiting onto the page. And then let another voice. I published a book of poetry called On Earth. And it literally came out of those vomits, because what happened is I'd write all this, and then this other voice would start coming through, the voice of my soul, the voice of my wisdom. And in the poetry books, I would I put that in italic in the poetry books. So there was one, I lost everything in 2010, I had a very successful business. I lost it all, and I had sold a beautiful house in Dublin and had bought a 1-bedroom apartment, and I put money into the bank. The vision was to create I had a wellness retreat in Dublin, create a country one. Anyway, to cut into the chase, I lost everything, and I was left in this little 1-bedroom apartment when I'd been on an acre of land in the city with a granny flat and an orchard and an organic garden. And I could only sit into a tree. If I could only sit into a tree, I'd get the answer. But I had no energy to get into the car and go and sit into a tree. And I was in this kind of cement apartment complex. So I sat down on the ground in my apartment and opened my journal. And the first line was, I sit into the crotch of a tree. Her leaves, and I called it autumn equinox, her leaves falling, her leaves falling, and my dreams falling as we both go back to branch and spine. I want to stay here for the winter and not come out, be squirrel-like and have food stashed, because nowhere else is home. Lean into me, she says, as I rest into her bark. Let silence and stillness feed you. Rest in emptiness and loss. Spring will come, it always does. So I just started with that first line of, I just need to sit into a tree, and I wrote that. And nowhere else is home, where else is home? I just feel stripped back like the leaves of the tree. And then the voice of the tree came through. Rest in emptiness and loss. Wait for spring, it will come, it always does. And that actually, I wrote that in September. I lost everything in sort of March, and this was September 2010. And that brought me through the winter. That helped me to be comfortable with the stripped back feeling that I felt. I had a relationship had also broken up the same year, a very significant relationship. And it just brought me through. And it's okay. The trees go through a winter time. I can go through a winter time. Everything has a season. Nature has a season. And back to the experience when I was 17, that everything outside of me is inside of me. So winter is also inside me.
Yes, it's a very good analogy for going inside and just listening. And once you get all of that stuff down on paper, it's down on paper, and it stops taking up room in your brain. Absolutely. So that you have room for your life, basically. Because as you talked about, we're raised in churches and schools, and everything that confines us and puts us in sort of a box with everybody our age. And we spend our life sort of compartmentalizing ourselves based on our past. And so by the time we're 30, 40, 50, we're narrowed ourselves down into a smaller box. And in order to get out of there, the journaling is a really good exercise for that, because it starts to break open the barriers that you may not even realize that you've put on yourself. Even though society has started you out that way, you continued to keep yourself within a certain box. And so I really like that you've shared that, because sometimes it takes something really big in life to change the way we feel and think about ourselves, and change and feel about others as well. And so instead of being reactive when we meet people, we come from a different place. We come from compassion and kindness. And sometimes people who are all bottled up don't understand that, because they haven't been able to find that within themselves to share. So I'm really glad that you gave that analogy, because it's hard to get there sometimes unless there's something pretty big that happens in your life that makes you sit in the tree, metaphorically, and really take an accounting of your life, and until that stops. And then there's room for you, the real you, the heart of you, to start revealing itself.
And I would say for anybody out there who's in a kind of a bleak place or a lost place, go into it, go into it with, just say, what does it look like? It's black, it's gray, it's desert, and just go into it and start writing, I'm in a desert. And what happens is something changes, like my poem with the tree. Like I see it with clients when I work with metaphor, if they're in a black place, just go into how black is it? Is it black? Do you notice anything? And next thing they notice, oh, there's a light over in the left-hand corner, or so something shifts.
Something shifts.
I think when we avoid it, you were talking earlier about it, you mentioned the word addiction, as I did, and we avoid it by stuffing our face with whatever that is. For me last week, coming back and settling back again after having a wonderful trip, eating sugar just to give me energy, but also in the adjustment, it was kind of comfort, but it wasn't really the answer, or alcohol, or work, or activity. And then we have, as you said, something happens and we have to stop. And it's that wake up of really, really sitting in. And I also think that, and that's what, because the body holds it, is not to avoid the desolated place. Sit into it, because there's a wisdom underneath it, or there's a spring well underneath it that wants to bubble up, and Carl Jung, in the latter part of his life, he became very influenced by a friend, Wolf. I can't remember her first name, but she really introduced him to Eastern mysticism. So towards the end of his life, he drew these beautiful mandalas. And he said that, and of course he developed the unconscious and the language of dreams, and literally induced breakdowns on his own psyche to face what we're just talking about. But what he came to towards the end of his life was that underneath all these stories, and is the essence of the person, and that that is available. And you start by just ask, and then please, I want to live my best life. Please, I want to follow my heart. And even if you don't even know what that means, just ask. I feel totally disempowered right now. I just, everybody's pulling out of me or whatever.
Yeah.
Just need help, please. I need help. And because I do believe that those cries are answered. I really do.
Oh, yes. I mean, your soul is
you're,
waiting.
you're putting it out there, and
Mhm.
it comes back. It'll come back in a dream. It'll come back in somebody you meet in a coffee shop. It'll come back in a flyer that falls in through your letterbox. You don't know, but it will come. It will come if you truly, truly want to. There has to be more to my life than what I'm looking at right now. And another beautiful story. It's not the easiest story, but it's probably one to bring up with empowerment. Of I had a teacher. Oh, I call her my fairy godmother. She introduced me to a lot at a very young age. She's now passed over. She introduced me to kind of the Aramaic language, that Jesus spoke, which helped me understand my Christian roots before it got Christianized and all that. But that's a whole other topic that we could talk about. But I remember a woman I know, wrote to her to say she was thinking of taking her life, and she listed all the reasons why it wasn't worth living anymore. And this woman's name was Faith, my fairy godmother. And Faith wrote back 2 lines. She said, "Honey, whatever it is you're running from, drop it now, for you sure take it with you." And that, bit like my experience in the field, is kind of etched in my brain. So if somebody came to me to say, "I just don't want to stay on the earth anymore," it wouldn't frighten me. I'd say, "Okay, we have an hour." Let's just, is it you're wanting to run from? What is it you're wanting to leave? What is intolerable? Let's look at what is intolerable and really face it rather than run from it, and see then what magic can happen and what can open. Melt into it, melt into the edge of it, and see what happens. With support.
Yes.
I'm not saying do this sitting in your own living room. Do it with somebody who isn't afraid of these edgy places in our souls and our psyches, and bring breath. Oh yes, back to the body. Bring breath, bring breath, bring breath. Keep breathing. Where is it in my body? Where is that thing I'm wanting to run from? Where is it in my body? It's here. It's like a fist here. Let's just breathe into it and keep it. Stay breathing. You don't have to change it. Just say hello to it with your breath. Say hello to it with your breath, and you will find, whoever is listening to this podcast or this video, you will find something will change, something will soften, because you've softened into it and you haven't pulled away from it. Yeah, so something will soften and something will open. Animals teach me that so much, Rhonda.
Oh, yes.
Yesterday, my little dog hurt her paw in the back of the car. She gave a little squeal. So I called her out to the front, and I was driving. She sat on my lap and she just shivered and shivered and shivered and shivered. And by the time we got home, it was over. She was back to herself. But what we do is we put lids on it. We numb it out or dumb it out with our numbing, dumbing foods and activities. And we don't, in a sense, shake it out and let it fall through our bodies, let it out. And then it becomes, what's that thing? Insult on injury.
Oh, yes.
And before we know it, we're like, there's all these rocks down on top of our beautiful, flowing, free essence, creative essence, myriad of possibility essence.
Well, we spend our whole life getting back to who we really are, which is our, as you said, true essence, back to our soul. And that's the name of my podcast, Courting Your Soul, because it starts with courting your soul, courting the reason you've come here. Remember why you've come here. And we get so caught up in life, is what we've called life, is getting to work on time and getting our work done and managing so many things and getting home, and we don't have time, or don't feel we have time, because our brain keeps us so busy, to begin journaling in the morning. And if you don't know what to write, just to sit and wait, because something will come.
That's right. I don't know what to write. If you can't do that because of family situations, start listening to podcasts like this on your earphones, or or in your car going to work. Start raising your vibration. It's all frequency. The frequency of fear, or the frequency of of soul, and I love the courting your soul, Rhonda. Like, can you imagine courting your soul? So, hello, I would like to get to know you. Can we go on a
Yeah.
date?
Well,
Make it sort
yeah.
of like a romance,
Yeah.
Are you? You're shy. Are you shy? I'm a little bit shy about you because I don't know how to talk to you. I don't know your language. What is your language? Start writing that out and see what happens. There's 1,000 ways, to come home.
There's something very tender. 1,000 ways to come home, to come back home to your soul's walk, your soul's journey, your path.
Right way, wrong way. There's 1,000 ways. I found during COVID, I took up winter swimming. That was one of the ways for sure, because you really reset your brain by facing that cold winter water.
Now, do you mean swimming in a pool or swimming
in the sea? I live beside the sea here, so yeah, and it was fabulous to do it because I went beyond myself. I went beyond the conditioning because I'm a real hothouse flower. I love heat. It was wonderful experience, sort of. And my logo is a horse with one foot outside the circle.
Yes.
How to just get ever so slightly outside that comfort zone. Not too much that you totally traumatize yourself, but enough that you stretch yourself, because the habits, I have them. We all have the habitual. As you get older, they get more ingrained.
It's harder to break out. You're listening to Courting Your Soul with Rhonda Grant. This podcast has been treated with digital audio health by my sponsor, Simatrax. And today I have the great pleasure of interviewing Mary Berkery, and she's going to let you know how you may reach out to her, and also the name of her book and where you may purchase it.
Thank you, Rhonda. Well, you can reach out to me through my website, might be the best. Mary Berkery, Berkery. There are no L's. MaryBerkery.com. Okay, so, and there's a place there, inquire, and you can send me an email to that, or you can email me, Mary@MaryBerkery.com. So that they're the ways to contact me. And I've written a book. I wrote it, came out, I think, 2 years ago, called Saved by a Horse. And it's stories about love, healing, and transformation through equine assisted learning. And I write blogs. And I've also done a TED talk called Horses as Mirrors. And I now work, horses are now part of my toolkit, but not all of it. I realize that horses are just reflecting us back to ourselves and to our own sovereignty and our own majesty and our own beauty. And, and so even if a person has a regular dream of a horse, they could have a session online with me. And I also life coach online with people. And I run retreats in the west of Ireland. I'll be running, interestingly, I'll be running one at the end of 2020, the autumn equinox of 2024, called Coming Home to Your Soul. So, and that's on my website, yeah. And I run retreats every spring and autumn equinox. They're fixed. And then I do a week in June and a couple of others around the place. But that's, and I'm running a retreat to Glastonbury this year, because I did a 2-year training, Rhonda, in Glastonbury up 2 years ago, called Priestess in the Underworld. So there we go. I wear
and what are your workshops on? What do you teach?
Workshop. Well, Coming Home to Your Soul is what it says in the tin. It's coming home to that essential self, and dismantling some of the stories that we tell ourselves, and setting intentions for the autumn to go into the winter with. And so that's that one. The journey to Glastonbury, again, it's all my retreats are about the inner journey. The outer journey is a reflection of the inner journey. And Glastonbury has incredible ley lines and wells and places of pilgrimage. And it used to be an ancient path between Ireland and England. So part of it is just to really open up the pathways between Ireland and England again, because of history. They got closed down and pain. And
Mhm.
the other part is it's really worth seeing. Glastonbury is such an incredible town. It used to be the Isle of Avalon. King
Mhm.
Arthur is buried there and Guinevere is buried there. And it's in October 2024, whenever you'll be watching this podcast. But I'll be doing, if it is a success, I'll be doing it ongoing. I'll be running them ongoing. Yeah.
Wonderful. What extraordinary discovery have you found in your life?
Oh gosh, I just feel when you say that, it's like a wave of tears come up through me.
Mhm.
And it sounds simple, and it's all inside you.
Yeah.
It's all inside you. You don't need we need support, we need companions, and we need
Yes.
community, and we need friends. But all of those people point you back to yourself. It's all inside you. You are making 3 million red blood cells a second. There is more happening in your body right now than the entire Milky Way galaxy. Already,
Mhm.
it's already all your heart is beating. You have no idea why it does that. You're listening to this podcast. You're able to sit upright. Your body is able to stay warm. It's all inside you. And we are untapped as humans. We have gone to the moon and back, and we're heading towards Mars. And we have made incredible discoveries with computers and with AI now coming on the scene. And I think the human isn't the potential of the human is yet to be tapped into, and how just to love each other and love ourselves and be excited when we see each other and be like little children.
Yeah.
Come back to that joy, come back to that wonder, come back to that exuberance, come back to the preciousness of this moment and your presence in it, your full embodied presence in it. It's all inside you.
Mhm.
One of my big mistakes in life was to trust someone else's opinion, and I lost a lot on that journey. So that's why I can say it's all inside you.
Wow.
Seeing a very senior person who I was looking up to as a kind of a spiritual mentor,
Mhm.
trusted his opinion more than my own, and muscled over myself. So I can say that because I have bled from it.
Mhm. Do you feel that you've been called to your journey, crafted it, or a bit of both?
I was born on the 24th of June, Rhonda, which is here at St. John's Day. And we grew up very strong Roman Catholic. So my mother insisted I go to Mass for my birthday. And the readings, it was always before the readings for St. John's Day is before I formed you in your mother's womb. I knew you, I knit you together. And even then, as a young girl, I felt that the stirring of that reading,
Mm-hmm.
and feeling there's something more to my life than, it was expected of me to take on a family business, which I did for 7 years, but I felt there was more. So there's always been a deep calling in my being that I have followed to the best of my ability, and some I've learned when I haven't, and also the crafting is, the crafting is from, in a sense, from some of the painful parts. I had no sense of my own beauty. I studied beauty therapy and massage, and I, and I then, had watched Frederick Le Boyer speak about natural childbirth, and it was another incredible pivotal time of realizing that the medical system doesn't give you everything that you need, and started doing my own research. So that's all the crafting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The experiences of my life sending me in different directions, and yet under the craft is call. Yeah. And as I get older, hopefully, instead of getting fossilized and in a box, that I'm going to get lighter and brighter and be like the indigenous tribes, where the older person is the crone and the wise one, and that people will come to. Yeah. Because society boxes away people who get older as well. We get it internally and externally. Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure to sit in your company and to learn all the wisdom that you have. And, I spent many years as a horse person, and we could probably talk an hour about horses, because I know when horse people get started, it's only going to be about horses, because there's so much to discuss. They're incredible creatures. And so perhaps we can have a talk about horses one day.
Because they are, I had a flash this morning. Horses, because they've become beasts, workhorses, only in the last 5,000 years. They're 55 million years on the planet, but only in the last 5,000 years have they been domesticated and in the coal mines, haulage, name everything, and then when the car was introduced, and the plane and the train, the recreation and dressage. And what I realized this morning is that horses are mystical creatures, in their essence, in their souls, and that they, to some extent, have forgotten who they are. So when we start remembering who they are, they help us to remember who we are. Yeah, so it works both ways. I have one horse, and she's a Buddha, absolute Buddha. I mean, she stood in front of me the other day, and she was very serious, and I knew she was speaking about, you need to get back on track with your diet because your energy is too low. So it was so funny. She was standing there almost like kind of with her hands on her hips, looking at me, But I only halter if I need to for veterinary purposes or for boxing, but otherwise they follow me from one field to the next now, and everything is at liberty. And people learn so much more when the horse is allowed to come in or out if they want.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And they come and they leave at exactly the right time. I never have to look at my watch.
They know.
Their session is over, and then I look at my watch, and our time is up, and there's somebody else coming. Yes, let's have another conversation, whether it be here or whether it be just casually, Rhonda. I'd love to talk.
Wonderful.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you back, and for the beautiful work that you do. And I've listened to some of your podcasts, and the quality of your questioning, the depth I feel the depth of your soul and your journey. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Courting Your Soul with Rhonda Grant, whose podcast has been treated with digital audio health by my sponsor, Simatrax. Theme song for Courting Your Soul is Sun on the Water, composed and performed by John Park Wheeler.